Hi, Mike.
Hi Andy, hi Phil. It's Mike Birchall from the Secretary of the Isle of Man United Taxi Branch. I'd like to talk about public transport, two different sectors. Firstly, bus vanning, and secondly, Mr. Allison's comments about the taxi trade yesterday.
Yeah.
So if you could bear with me for both of those. So services cut over the weekend, I believe it was 80, and yet they had buses down on Peel Harbour on Sunday covering private hire work off the cruise ships. Two as Isle of Man, I know for a fact, had coaches available that could have covered the cruise ship work that day. So it could have been with a bit of communication. It could have been covered, but it goes back to bus vanning, competing with the private sector and trying to get the more lucrative work instead of concentrating on the services that they should be providing to the public, as far as I'm concerned. And we can liken that to what they've been doing with the taxi trade, with the dialer rides and the Connect Port service. Certainly, there's no way that they should have been competing with us running buses from minibuses on order from Ramsey to the airport to compete with the taxi trade. So they're trying to hone in on the more lucrative work rather than providing the service that they should be providing. So Tim Cruckle mentioned this morning as well that they've got a shortage of workers there at the moment. One, because of COVID, and two, I think he said it was 8 or 9 people that hadn't been replaced. They hadn't been able to find staff. So we have to ask ourselves, why haven't they been able to replace those people? Driving a bus going back 15, 20 years ago, it used to be dead man's shoes. You couldn't get in unless somebody had retired. That was the situation. So why is it different now? Well, the employees down there, we have 3 different working contracts down at the bus company. We have the original ones. I'm not going to mention any figures. We have the original ones where they get their set rate Monday to Friday and they have to work their roster Monday to Friday. And if they work the weekends, they get an overtime rate, which is fair enough. So then Mr. Longworth decided he was going to try and cut the costs. He thought, we'll bring in a second contract here, and eventually got it through. He got it past the unions, etc. And he cut the rate of pay to below what the Monday to Friday rate was. And he said, right, you're not getting any extra for working the weekends either. But the roster, as far as I'm aware, was still, they only had to work Monday and Friday. Weekends were optional. So the boys on that tariff, they said, well, we're not working the weekends for no more money than we get Monday to Friday. So then we ended up with Mr. Longworth himself, people from the office, management, out driving buses at the weekend on the lucrative rate because they couldn't staff the bus service at the weekend. Didn't have the staff to do it. Nobody wanted to do it apart from the original boys on the original contracts. So then he had to scratch his head again and think again. So we brought in a third tariff, which is slightly higher than the second tariff. But now they have to work any 5 out of 7, so if they have to sit in a bus at the weekend. So my point is, if they'd left it the way it was, it would still be dead man's shoes. Everybody would get a fair rate. There wouldn't be any animosity within the drivers. You've got 3 different rates of pay down there. You've got the ones on the good pay, the ones on the low pay, and the ones on the medium pay. So that must create envy, if you like, within the workforce as well. There was just no need for that. That was a mistake in itself. If you hadn't changed it, it wouldn't have happened. That was my point regarding that. The other thing I'd like to sort of bring up, nothing to do with the lack of public transport, but Mr. Longworth derailed a tram at Greenskerry last year and seriously injured his partner. I've not been able to find anything about an inquiry into this or any report of an inquiry. I'd just like to know if any of your listeners know anything about this. Was there an inquiry? If so, where is it online? Bearing in mind that if a bus driver, the likes of the one a couple of years ago up at Birch Hill, his bus rolled off the road, rolled into a house, I believe, or off the road anyway, and he got dismissed and he won an unfair dismissal tribunal and got reinstated. But, it seems to be one rule for one rule for the other. That's my thing about the buses. I don't know if you've got any comments to make on that, Andy, or Phil.
No, we're running short of time, so if you could briefly just mention the taxis.
Right. Okay. Well, Mr. Allison mentioned yesterday that he would ask the airport taxi drivers to return to work, and as many of them to get out as possible. The problem with the airport at the moment is if Mr. Allison wishes to discuss this with me, I'm sure he can find my details. It's not a problem. But there isn't enough work coming out of that airport. There's not enough flights coming in and not enough people on them to warrant the airport taxi drivers returning to work full time. They've had to seek other work to make a living, and they can't just put their taxis back on the road for 2 weeks of the year over the TT periods. At the moment, today, for example, you've got 10 flights coming in. There's 2 and 3 hour gaps in the schedule, but over a 12-hour period, there's 10 flights coming in with approximately 600 passengers on. 2 EasyJets and the rest of Logan Air with a scattering of passengers. You just can't make a living out of that. That's my point with that. So
what's going to happen over Mike? What's going to happen over TT when it's going to be full?
I don't know what's going to happen with the bus service over TT. We're all going to have to knuckle down and work the hours that we can and do what we can do. We're in a mess. The car park situation at the airport certainly hasn't helped us over the last 12 months. I myself have had 2 bookings that I've taken cancel on me within a matter of days because they've realised that the airport car park's free. They said, we're going to leave our car in the car park now. We need help to encourage people to go back and do the job, not discourage people. So we'll be happy when they're charging for the airport car park again, and we'll be happy if Bus Vannon decides to drop the Connect Port service as well.
Okay, all right, Mike, thanks for calling today. I just want to run through the